Hey guys, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are and what you're doing. We're about 3 hours apart, depending on. You guys are both in Nashville. I'm in Florida.
Yeah, you're on the beach there. I can see it.
We haven't had a
Yeah,
Zoom call
kind
in
of.
a long time.
Yeah, how you guys been? I know we've got some interesting discussions today, specifically about Brad and his life the last couple of weeks. How are you feeling, Brad?
Good. Yeah, it's been a while since we've done a podcast together. Mainly because I've been home with Corona the last couple of weeks. Unfortunately, I don't know where I caught it. I think it was on a plane coming back from Detroit. There was zero social distancing. I think somebody let it out of the bag, and I must have caught it. So yeah, it's been an interesting couple of weeks for sure. It's 12 days of feeling pretty crappy. Definitely, when you have it for sure. It's not something that you think you might have. But yeah, it's been interesting. It's been challenging at the same time, trying to work at the same time and being sick. And I think, that's a challenges that a lot of people find themselves in this year. And it's just part of life. And, sometimes you gotta, I've learned that you got to have good people backing you up, because at any time as a business owner, you just never know when something might take you out of the game for a little bit. So,
yeah. What was your? What?
Go ahead.
Ken.
No, we're working with a delay today. No, you go, Bob.
I was just gonna ask, how are you feeling now? Are you like out of the woods 100%?
I feel better than I have in 20 years. No, I feel good. I feel pretty much 100% for the most part. It's a very, very weird feeling, because it's like when you, this is just my experience. I know everyone has a little different experience, and the virus affects them a little differently. But I was telling people, you feel like there's something in your body that your own body doesn't know how to defend against. It's like confused. And so the virus goes around and just pokes at you. It just tries to find a vulnerability. So like, okay, you get sinus infections, I'm going to give you a sinus infection. So it starts to go around and poke at you. And, you might have weird, like even leg cramps out of the blue. Like your legs are crampy. You're like, what is going on? My muscles hurting my legs. And then all of a sudden, an hour later, your head's throbbing. And then a couple hours later, you can't even stand up because you're so tired. And it kind of feels like a cycle, a weird cycle where every couple of hours you might have a little fever, and then it goes away. And then all of a sudden you feel like you need to sleep for 8 hours. It's an interesting thing. But my body finally, I felt like it was Groundhog Day, where every day you'd wake up and you're like, okay, I just slept 8 hours, and I just woke up and I feel like I've been hit by a truck, and I want to sleep another 10 hours. And you literally are just so exhausted. A lot of headaches up here, especially. I lost my taste halfway through. I thought I was going to keep my taste, because that was 1 week almost into it, and I'm like, people ask me, did you lose your smell or your taste? And I said, no, I didn't lose my smell. And then all of a sudden on a Friday, I had a really good day. After 5 days of being into it, I had a really good day, and I was feeling really good on a Friday night, and I think I was watching a movie, and I'm like, man, I feel good. I think I'm out of this. And then I woke up on Saturday morning, and my head was so congested. I felt like crap. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, I can't smell a thing. And it wasn't because of the congestion. It was like literally my senses were gone. And I could put my head into a bucket of fresh ground coffee, and I couldn't even smell it at all, which is the oddest feeling. And so that Saturday, I lost my smell. And then I had another whole week of feeling crappy the whole week. So I thought I was out of it, and then I wasn't. And I had probably 70% of the nights I'd wake up at 2 a.m, all drenched in sweat. I'd have night sweats. Just odd, very odd.
How's your family made it through with you?
good. They none of them got it. My daughter and my wife were out of town when I had it, and so they weren't exposed to me whatsoever. My younger son was exposed to me. He's 14, but he didn't have any symptoms whatsoever.
So no one else got it in your family?
Yeah, no one else did. No.
That's great.
Yeah.
Were you like sequestered to one room or something like that?
Well, my son was the only one home at the time, so he was kind of on the other side of the house. But we didn't really do tons of social distancing. Like, we didn't wear masks around each other or anything, and because he had already been really exposed to me, I figured if he's going to have it, he's going to have it. So he didn't have any symptoms whatsoever. We haven't had him checked for antibodies, but it's probability that he actually has antibodies, that he actually went through them and he just fought it very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Well, man, glad to see you're doing better. And, we thought about doing the podcast, even while you were doing it, but you kept coughing a lot. And so even over Zoom, it just didn't feel right.
I just fall asleep in the middle of it.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Yeah. So I was lucky, it was unexpected. And I think one thing that I learned, at least from our business perspective, is that, with businesses, you got to be prepared for anything, and you've got to make sure you have a really good team. And I have a guy who works for me who really just took the ball with everything, and kind of stood up and took all the notes. And we would try to at least talk once or twice a day just to kind of go over stuff. But there's some days, literally, like, I just couldn't do it. Like, he was like, "Hey, you think you could, jump on a call quickly at 3 and talk about a few things?" And by 2:00, I was in bed snoozing because I was so exhausted. It was hard because I couldn't determine during the week when I would feel bad. Like, when you start feeling to the point where literally you're going to fall asleep standing up if you don't go and lay down somewhere. It's that exhausting. I've never felt so exhausted for such a long period of time in my entire life. And as I think we just have to be prepared, that you have to really prepare your business so that you, as a business owner, don't need to be there every hour to run it. And I think that's the goal of all of us. But I think when you find yourself in a situation where you're forced not to when you actually can't participate, then you really realize what you have and what you don't have, like who can actually support you and who can't. And so it was certainly a test for sure. And it went well. And, everything, there was no balls dropped, and I'm back at it now 100%. And, I don't wish COVID upon anybody. It's definitely, I know some people have an easier time with it. And actually, I thought I would have an easier time if I got it 100% healthy. And I felt like I had a mild case of it, from what I can tell. People say you had a really mild case of it. Even a mild case wasn't fun. It was 2 weeks of not feeling well. So
yeah, while you were talking, I was just thinking, again, like, I think you said, like, it's a good example, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit today, but like, it's a good example of what happens when something changes and what areas of your business. I kind of look at it as like a house of cards. Like, what area is a house of cards, or is not sustained, or doesn't have redundancies and those kind of things. Because it's not even just you, but like, it could be key employees or key leaders in your company, right? That if something happens to them, like, is there no redundancy in that area? Like, what happens if some of your key people or some of your key systems go down? I think you can apply that logic to a lot of different areas of your company, and maybe, I don't know. I think I'm interested to walk through some of your business areas today. Like, I don't know. I have questions about, like, what happened with, like, did clients know? Were you on any clients' calls at all? Do you feel like the business was able to just run and come out the same on the other side or better? Do you feel like it was a challenge significantly to your company?
Yeah. Well, I think most of my clients probably knew. There was a whole set of some of our clients who actually they all had it back in March. So I think there was a lot of empathy because some of them had it for 2 weeks like I did, and they're like, "Oh man, you got it!" Like, "Oh, okay." So a lot more empathy, I think, because of people understanding that it's not just a common cold feeling. There's a little more struggle than a common cold for most people. And so I think there was a lot of empathy. People really realized that they need to kind of. I didn't get bombarded with emails that I couldn't answer because I, didn't have bandwidth or I didn't have I wasn't involved in the details. So it was good. So that part was just because of But in the future, if you ever do have to leave for some reason for 2 weeks, your clients may not be that sympathetic. I think it's just a unique situation right now. But it definitely made me feel like in my own businesses, there is some areas that, like, for instance, I was taken care of by a few key people, but some of those key people in my business, if they got sick, I don't think I could fill in for them just because I don't have the daily knowledge of a lot of the stuff. So there is redundancy of knowledge that it would take me a little bit to get into their shoes to understand that knowledge before I could even help out and take over, which would delay things and delay projects. So if it was spun the opposite way, as a business owner, I'm always trying to get away from the daily fires so that I can actually do other things that actually drive the business and growth. And so the challenge is, though, is that if a couple of my key people had a situation where they couldn't perform their job or got sick for a long period of time, it would be challenging. It would be really challenging. And I think those are some areas in my own business that I need to look at and try to find out how I can affordably create redundancies, or how to have two people kind of tag team certain projects so that if one couldn't do it, the other one can step in really quickly.
I was going to ask that, like, have you thought about how you might create those? Like, what would you do? Are you talking about extra hires?
Yeah,
or
extra hires,
fallbacks and those kind of things?
Yeah, extra hires, specific hires, more of teamwork, team building, team managing certain clients as a team versus a single person being kind of a key contact. Dealing with a lot of the details are that's where it gets sticky. I think in any business is that when you're dealing with client services, there's sometimes so much information that if you're not privy to those conversations, if you're not on those calls, if you're not directly emailing back and forth these little nuances, you can kind of get lost a little bit in some of the projects. You don't understand the full scope, and so I think sometimes that's the challenge that we need some redundancies in that area. We do have communication redundancies where I can see communication, which is always helpful. So I think one thing is that you want to make sure that in your business that you don't have a very one-way street of communication to a specific employee, that somehow that messaging back and forth to your customer is someplace that you can actually go and look and see the communication, because I think that's really helpful too. So even communication redundancy and being able to have transparency in that area, I think, is really key.
Yeah, Brad, go ahead, Ken.
No, I was going to say that, communication, I think there's different areas of redundancy. I think there's, like, at least the way I think about it, there's, like, systems and those kind of things that help you make sure you can jump into something. Like you said, like communication systems, like we use certain systems internally, and we have certain rules about where stuff goes so that if someone has to jump into something that has never done it before, they know there's enough of a paper trail to know context, to know what's going on, like that kind of stuff. I think there's systems. And then I think there's like role redundancy. which is, obviously someone does certain things and you need to kind of back them up. And I think both of those take investment. And so I don't know, that's where I was going to go next. I think it's hard to do that. If you're looking at, only, if you're not willing to invest some of your profit into it, because I think that it's hard. You can't build those. It's hard to build those without investment, because obviously there's a cheaper way to do things, which is not to have redundancies, but it has more risk attached to it.
Mm.
Yeah, for sure. Brad, do you feel also like during this time, there was some obvious things that you discovered about your business that maybe, or you're like, hey, this ran a lot smoother than I thought, and it didn't fall and everything? I mean, what was the biggest takeaway from you? Just from, I know there's a lot of anxiety, or at least there would be for me as a business owner, when I ran an agency, thinking, oh my gosh, I'm down and out. Things are going to fall through the cracks. Were you pleasantly surprised, or were you disappointed?
No, I was happy. I felt like part of what I was dealing with at the time, I mean, the 2 weeks was a blur because I was sleeping for probably, I felt like 18 hours a day. So, just struggling with yourself and trying to get your wits about you to the point where you can actually just be awake and aware and be on a call or something. A business call was tough, was challenging. So I had to give up a little bit. I had to kind of go, okay, it's going to go where it's going to go right now, because I need to kind of take care of myself at this point, which was, he's just exhausted. And so I really couldn't do anything, to the point where the additional stress of thinking about the business, for some reason, I wasn't as stressed out about it. I knew I had projects were in good hands. And so I trusted. I knew if there was an issue, I'd get pinged, so that I knew that, I wasn't going to be in the dark if there was an issue going on, and something wasn't going to go astray without me at least being notified and known early on. It's something I could step in and help out with if I needed to. And I felt good about it. Again, it's the aftermath that you don't know. It's like anything. It's like, okay, everything good? Okay, everything's good. Okay, we're back on track. I think it's also, the time of the year is interesting for us because this isn't our heaviest time of the year, right before Christmas. Like, we're not doing a lot of like Black Friday pushes and things at this point. This year we weren't anyways. And so it wasn't like this isn't the most craziest time of the year for us. We're busy, but it's not to the point where we're every day we're launching new things every single day, and things, if they don't get launched correctly, then our clients are going to fire us or anything. So I think it worked out well. Again, I think you can always do takeaways. My takeaway is I need to have a little bit more redundancy for my team, because if it was somebody else on a team, one of our team members, it could have been more challenging for me to have to step into that, that situation. So most of the stuff was just daily stuff that someone else handled anyways, and so I wasn't as involved in.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? What do you has my experience at all made you guys think a little bit about just like what ifs?
It's made me question being in the room with you guys.
Yeah, I was wondering why.
Yeah, we're still on
the Zoom instead of the person.
Yeah. How long since you've had it, or since you've been done? Because we've been texting, but I don't know when it actually finished.
I don't know if there's actually a finish to it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, right. It just goes on.
Last Friday. So what is that? How many days ago is that now? I felt a lot better. I don't think I've had a fever since probably almost just shy of a week.
Okay.
So 5 or 6 days of no fevers at least, if not more. And then
that's good.
Yeah, Friday I think I felt pretty good. Saturday I felt great. Felt pretty much back to normal. Sunday felt back to normal. So yeah, what is it? Today's Wednesday.
Yeah, so let's give it another 2-3 weeks and then we'll see you.
Yeah. No, I'm not completely. It's funny.
Just
It
kidding.
just kind of stops. Just like it's like anything. All of a sudden, my body just must have kicked in and got it taken care of. And it just, as soon as that happens, you start feeling a lot better. So,
Part of me thinks I've had it already, but anyway, is there like a weight? I'm curious. Is there like a weight that's been lifted off of you now that you've got the you've had it and you're
I don't think it was. People ask me that. Was it like, oh man, I wish I could get it and just get it over with and get the antibodies? And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I don't think you want like 2 weeks of
right.
feeling like crap for it. I don't think it's worth it. Again, some people have a very mild case of it. They're 1 or 2 days, they feel better. If that's the case, then maybe yes, but not. You just never know. Like, I think everyone's different. I think that's the thing, is that some people have a good, easy time with it and some don't. And you don't know if you are or not. Like, I thought I actually would have an easier time. Like I said, 1 week into it, or less than 7 days into it, I started feeling better. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm getting out of it. And it was okay. I could handle that. And all of a sudden it came back with a little bit of a rage, and took me out for another week. So you just kind of never know. And, but it is kind of, there is something nice about going out now and not having to personally worry about contact for a while anyways. I don't know how long. They say the antibodies last they're doing some research. They're saying that the antibodies are lasting about 120 days max for most people. But that's not the full extent of somebody's ability to be, to not get it. There's also T cells, which they don't really know how long last. Could last for a lot longer, and you could be immune a lot longer than that. So who knows? But I still wear a mask to make people feel comfortable, even though I probably don't need to. But that would be weird walking around. And so I think just to make people feel comfortable, we go out and act like it's normal, like everyone else.
Love it. I love it. Very good.
So what? Just from that whole thing, and as we've kind of experienced this, and I know, Brad, you and I know people who have actually passed away from it. Was in the back of your mind, was there like, I better like take this seriously, because was there ever a fear of not making it through it? Where you're like, or were you totally confident? Hey, I'm young, I'm pretty strong, I'm going to get through this. I mean, this is like something none of us have ever really dealt with. Like, if you catch a cold, or even if you get the flu, you're like, okay, I just got to be down for a couple of days. But was there anything in the back of your head going on, like, all right, I've got to really, really watch this, and I got to be ready to go to the hospital if I need to? Yeah.
Well, I definitely did anything I possibly felt like I could to help my immune system. For sure, it was concerning. I think it was more concerning after I started feeling better, and then a couple of days later started going down again, because the fear of it is that it never went into my lungs into a cough, or where it was really deep in my lungs. Even though I did feel like it affected my lungs at some level, it's almost like my breathing became a little heavier, almost as if you go into a steam sauna a little bit, where you walk into a steam sauna, you just have a little bit of heaviness, even though it never developed into a cough. But what it did develop into is a bad sinus infection, which I think added to my sleepiness, because when you're dealing with a sinus infection on top of the virus, then now you got double whammy. And I think that's where a lot of my tiredness came from. But on about a week and 1 day after I first had my symptoms, I actually went to the doctors, and they prescribed me an antibiotic and some other things to help me, even a steroid spray, just in case it got deeper into my lungs. And I, about a day and a half after I started my antibiotics, 2 days, I definitely cleared up my head, which made a big difference. But as far as the fear is concerned, I was just kind of monitoring if it went into my lungs a little bit stronger, if I was developing more of a cough, which I didn't, then I think that concern would have gotten a little heightened for me. And I do know that it can happen quickly, just like the one day you're feeling good, the next day your head's all congested, and you just overnight things can change. And I understand that, especially with this virus, it's just going through your body and it's starting to do its thing. And so it was definitely a concern of mine for sure. It wasn't. I never got to the point where I was feeling like I would ever need to go to the hospital, but certainly went to the doctors one day to see if there's anything else they could do to help, speed up the healing. So the antibiotics for sure definitely worked. You can tell that those worked right away within the first day or so. And then everything else I just did what you normally do: drink a lot of liquids, use Motrin and Tylenol to kind of combat headaches, and would try to get as much sleep as I could, even though I couldn't really do anything but sleep. It was just, your body just wants to fight it, just wants to. Is there anything in looking at 2021 and any advice that you give business owners, agency owners now that you've been through it? Has any of your protocols or planning or thoughts or opinions on this changed any? Like what have you learned from would you continue to encourage business owners to do social distancing in the office, wear a mask when they're in the hallways? Or I'm just curious from your perspective, how you're viewing this now. Has it changed any? Well, it hasn't changed the way I feel about COVID. I haven't been, because I don't really know where I got it, and nobody else around me had it, and even people, I was with people up to 2 days before I started having symptoms, or a day and a half, and I didn't give it to anybody because nobody around me has got it from me. So it's just a weird thing. What's that?
I think Bob had an internet blip.
Oh yeah, so it's a weird thing because it's not a very calculated thing. Like, I can't say that you're going to be calculated just because you wear a mask doesn't mean you're not going to get it. I mean, I wore a mask everywhere. I was on planes with masks, in airports with masks, and somehow, some way, I got it. And I don't know how. Maybe I could put it in my hands. Maybe I could put it in my mouth. Maybe, who knows? And so I just think, you just got to go about your life trying to try not to worry about it, because it's really a statistic at this point, and you have to just do what you think is right for you and what you feel is right, the most defense that you have. So if it's social distancing and wearing masks, then do it. And as far as implementing things in the business, I think we just need to implement what everyone feels safe doing, because I think you have to have respect for people during this time. There's people who have more fear of it, and when they're out and about, there's all the different spectrums of that. I know people that still won't even hardly go out of their house. I know other people who are, out all the time like normal, nothing's changed. And you have different spectrums of that fear, and you got to be respectful. So if I can wear a mask, even though I don't need to now, obviously for a while maybe, but if I can wear a mask and I can bring some peace to somebody that they feel more secure because I have my mask on, then why wouldn't you do that? Like, why wouldn't you do that for somebody else? Even if you don't have that fear. So I think that we just gotta, until this vaccine comes out, which is, really interesting now that there's almost 4 vaccines that are going to be out here in the next couple weeks. One starting as early as a week and a half to start implementing here in the United States. It probably is going to change the landscape if people are not afraid of getting the vaccine. And my hope is that by March that, we're pretty much back to normal with these vaccines as kind of hopefully people will get them. And I don't know how you guys feel about the vaccines, but hopefully it will. I like that
we're going to have choices on the vaccine. Which I think is kind of unprecedented. Which that's kind of nice. I'm kind of a wait and see kind of guy. Even with like the new M1 computers for Mac, I'm like, oh, should I get one? No, I want to wait till second generation. think I'm kind of same way with the vaccine. I'm going to wait till second generation.
He's a second generation vaccine guy.
Yeah, you're not going to be the first in line. You don't want to be the guinea pig.
I guess it depends on what day you ask me, but generally I'll wait for the second generation.
Yeah,
maybe March, April. I'll jump in the pool.
3 months with this with these antibodies, so maybe I can hold off a little bit too. Yeah, I'm not going to run right out and get it for sure. I would just say maybe people who are, they're going to test the most vulnerable. They're going to hopefully treat the most vulnerable first, and I think those are the people that would have a side effect of the vaccine if they were to get it. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully these vaccines will go without a hitch and just as planned, which I think would be great. And the stock market loves that. There's a lot of positive things going on right now. We need a lot more positive things right now in the news, and we need 2020 was it had its positive moments and it had negative moments, and it was definitely a trial year for everyone. Everyone probably felt like they were pushed a little bit and prodded, and they were stretched a little bit, and it's challenging when we all get stretched, but I think we're going to all grow from this time, and I'm definitely going to look back and maybe I'll tell my kids, hey, I had COVID. They're like, oh yeah, COVID, I remember that. It's in our history books. It shut down the whole country and the world, and what was it like? And I can make up this fictitious story about how hard it was and how I had to crawl to like the doctors, the hospital, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just curious from a practical perspective for our listeners who are kind of wrestling with this on some level, looking forward to a new year, getting through the holidays, and how, from your perspective, and I'd love to hear you too, Ken, like how much do you feel like COVID is going to affect 2021 as it did? Do you feel like it's going to be better? Do you feel like we've adapted to the point where we're just going to continue to adapt in a better way? I'm just curious what your guys' predictions are for 2021, given everything that happened, new election, new vaccines, new world that we live in.
Yeah, I would just say, I think looking at business 2021 and just life, I don't think anything. I genuinely believe that it's unrealistic that something is likely to majorly change. What I mean is, I think there's a trajectory with this stuff. I think it's an evolution of these things. I don't think it's going to snap back to normal or what was normal. I think it's kind of approaching a new normal. And you see events in history that are sort of inflection points. I personally think that this is kind of one of those. And I think that as businesses and as people, we have to find ways to adapt and ways to live not in fear, because there are always reasons to be afraid. We just may not always be aware of them, and this is maybe one of those things. Maybe that we're more aware of on a daily basis, but I kind of think that. I think there's more hope now that we've settled into it. I think that on the business side, I think there's more. I'm more as excited as I have been in years, because I think that changes create opportunities, and so I think that from the business side, it's really interesting. Obviously, in our world, we're in e-commerce, and so that's an interesting thing in and of itself, and we're trying to find ways to innovate inside of that, and obviously do as best we can with that opportunity. But I think that's the case in many businesses in many ways. So from the business side, I'm excited about that. I think there's a growth that has to happen as human beings on the population side, whatever that means. But I think that we have to be kind to each other. We have to. I think there's this. We're going through a trial, and I do think that there's probably growth that happens on the other side of it, and I think it's challenging. I think that things like a vaccine, I think that's obviously, I think that's a good thing. I don't know personally how I would feel about, I probably would wait on it, but I think any of those kind of things, there's never, in my opinion, there's never like a sure thing, like a 100%, right decision. It's rare that that's the case because you just don't know a lot of things. And so even with decisions we think that are, 100%, good decisions, we're still actually taking a calculated risk. And so I think everyone has different things they have to weigh those calculated risks against. I think that's the case with vaccines. I think that's the case with businesses. And so, for instance, like, I think there's a calculated risk with taking a vaccine. There's a calculated risk with not taking a vaccine. And so based on where you are, maybe in your life, health-wise, mentality, that kind of stuff, you have to make your decision. But I actually think that applies to business too. I think how we navigate through 2020 right now, this, as a business and find ways to mitigate disruption that really wasn't likely before, right? Like we've never had a situation where we couldn't get together in person, or people weren't comfortable with it necessarily, so it ended up in where you had to find new ways of doing business, right? And so that's the case now. So we've got to adapt and figure that out, and every business has a different level of comfortability in how they dial that in. I think as an agency, I think it's interesting because I would say most, I don't know, Brad, like, are most agencies digital agencies these days? I would say yes, but I know there are probably some that are not. But as an agency, it's probably easier to work remote. I'd be curious to know if it's less costly. I think it probably is. I think you still have to. I think the hard part then becomes, like, how do you find ways to connect people, to keep people together, and that kind of stuff. That's one of the challenges we've been looking at is how do we've brought in new employees in this time, and it's caused us to think about, like, onboarding is different, but then actually, like, integrating is different. How do you get somebody, in this new era, which I personally don't think is just going to change overnight at any point. I just think it's going to kind of gradually normalize. And so in this new era, however long it is where you're very remote, how do you get people integrated and part of a team and feeling like they're part of a team? How do you keep people connected and those kind of things?
I think that's going to be a challenge. I think, for me, I feel like if you look at after a war, right, our country has typically done really well. Like everyone's back at it. We're unified. We're ready to work. And I kind of feel like with COVID, that's the way our economy is going to be. It's going to be like, if we can get these vaccines out, we have a new election, we have kind of a start over. It's a brand new year, 2021. Everyone feels probably that, 2020 was a wash. And so we're all pent up, ready to do things. And so I think there's going to be an explosion. And I think it's going to be a positive, at least short-term positive for our economy, for jobs. I mean, the job rate is at 6% right now. It'll probably go down to 3 to 4%. Pretty quickly, especially as soon as we can get the vaccine out. So I think it's going to be, for the next year and a half, I think it's going to be a very positive year. But then I do believe that we may have some challenges coming up in the next 2 or 3 years with inflation. We have to pay for all of the stimulus and all the money we just gave away to everyone during this time. So I do believe that we will pay for this time, but it may not be for another couple years down the road. But I think then we might see a little bit more of a recession in 3 or 4 years from now, with higher inflation and things. So, but I do think the short term, it's going to be a really good short term. I think 2021 is going to be a great year as long as there's no other issues in our that affect our economy. In our business. And I think, the challenge is going to be, are we going to continue to work the way we are remotely? Or have we now changed has the world changed the way they work to the point where they like this remote working environment? And are you going to, like you said, if you onboard somebody, is it going to be hard to integrate them into the team because you're not all in the office? And if that's, are we going to go back to that? Is that going to be the new normal, or is this the new normal? I don't know. We'll find out. By summer, we should know a little bit more, and maybe we'll talk about it again in the summer to see how transitions has happened in our business. But I don't know. I think we got a good 2021 lined up. So.
Yeah, I'm hopeful about it personally as well. And I think that one thing this should teach you, I think this time, whether it's just the last 9 months, or Brad, the event of you actually getting coronavirus and having having to rely on other people. I think as an agency and as a business, you really need to think about how you diversify and how you create redundancies and how you mitigate potential disruption. Like, what are the weaknesses in your business? At least be aware of those. I kind of go through that pretty regularly on our side. And sometimes you can't head them off, but you're at least aware of them. And other times you become aware of something that you immediately have to try and figure out how do you back that up in case it goes down, because it's a vulnerability. I think this year has taught us that anything can happen. And so, you have to be aware of those vulnerabilities, and if you run a stable business, you really have to back them up, and that takes extra investment. That takes a little bit of extra time, a little bit of extra thinking.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree with you guys. I think I think there's some really good lessons that we've learned, but also looking to 2021 and say, what is your financials? What is your, setting aside those savings for something like this that could happen. If COVID good news comes out with the vaccine and it goes down, are you ready to staff up again? I think we're going to see some interesting things happen in 2021. And I think the biggest thing is that the new innovation that has happened and the new opportunities, just with education, just with new technology, just with, what we're doing here with video conferencing and all the things that come around it, and the peripheral businesses that come around it, and the way that people shop. It'll be interesting to see how, we're recording this a couple of days before Black Friday. What is that going to even look like this year? I think e-commerce is going to be through the roof, bigger than ever, which will, again, just drive everybody's excitement and investment toward that in 2021. So I think there's a lot of great things that are coming overall.
Absolutely. Looking forward to 2021 for sure.
Yeah, Brad, we're glad you're doing better, and that you're on the mend, and that you made it through, and now we have a firsthand witness to this whole thing. And
yeah, I need to little I voted sticker. I need I COVID sticker or something to walk around, and people are like, oh, okay, they're good for a while.
Yeah, no one will shake your hand for the next 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what to tell people about it, and my mouth shut, because it's like, oh, you had it? But it's been a while now, so I'm good. But
good.
Yeah, well, hopefully you guys, next time we meet up, you guys won't be too scared to do it in person.
Yeah. I mean, at least now when you're yelling and spitting and doing all that kind of stuff, across the table at us, at least we know, you don't have it anymore.
I was with you guys only 2 days before I started having some symptoms. So, you guys felt fine. We were sitting around within a couple of feet spitting at each other on our microphones. So I'm glad that you guys didn't get it for sure. That was my concern, is people around me were going to start getting it for some reason. I didn't want to spread it to anybody else. So,
by the way, that was sarcasm, but yes.
Yes. Okay. All right, guys.
Guys, you guys have an awesome Thanksgiving, and meet each other in the studio soon. And listen, anybody out there who's listening, please continue to send us your questions. Follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn. We're upping our social media game in 2021, and we'd love to get more interaction. And got some guest plans, so please write and review, rate and review, all that good stuff. You guys have any other things you want to sign off with?
No, I mean, I think that's it. Share this with anyone who you think would be helpful. And and give us feedback. I wonder what areas of people's businesses they would be most concerned about if they got coronavirus, or what that was if they already had it. I'd be curious to know.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, till the next time.
Yeah.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Ciao.